Hey, I'm Amy Redman, and I'm so glad you're joining me to paint today. This is part 2 of our tropical scene, and we've already created the sunset sky in part 1. Now we're going to work on the ocean portion of our tropical scene here. So the way that we're going to get started is I talked about the colors in part 1, so if you haven't done part 1, go back to that one and you'll know what colors that we're using, but I imagine that you want to continue and do each part of this with me. So we're going to scoop up some of our white and some of this gold color called raw sienna, and let's add a little bit of a beach in this area. So let's maybe do a beach kind of on this side here. I'm not going to be leaving it in this very square-like kind of a fashion, but I'm just starting it out that way. We see flat land as with a horizontal brush stroke. So just like in our sky we were using horizontal brush strokes, I want to do the same thing on my flat land here as well. So I'm just going to kind of spread this out. And again, I'm just using that raw sienna gold color with some white. And that's going to give us kind of a nice shoreline there of sand. I can always deepen that, but that's not really what I'm focused on. So we can add a bit more of the gold in there, but I'm going to let that be because that's not the focus of our painting here, of what I'm trying to teach you today. So I'm going to wash that brush out. Again, you want to dig down to the bottom of the water cup so that you really open up the bristles and release that paint. Scrape it on the side edge and dry that off so that you're not chasing drips or diluting that nice rich acrylic color that we're working with. And now I want to get a layer onto my ocean area. So I'm going to take both blues. So I'm using my Cobalt and my Ultramarine blue, and I'm just picking them up where they meet there. And I'm just going to slide that on. Once again, a horizontal brush stroke. And we're using our large flat brush, and as I discussed in part 1, manufacturers all have different size categories, and so there's not really any consistency there. But I've got a size 10 flat brush, and I think that if you're right around there, it might be a 10 or a 12, something in that range, you should be just fine. So I'm just going to work that color all the way down to the bottom of my canvas. And I'm going to create a bit of an area that the ocean is going to be sweeping up on. And note that I am going to have this little bay here because I'm going to actually add in a little mountain here or hillside. I'm going to have this get a little bit narrower, and then right back here at my horizon line, I want to make sure that's a nice straight level line because our eye does see that horizon line is very straight and level. So get that as straight as you can, and you could even go right across to let you know right where you're going to be putting our little hill here as well. And again, we're just going to sweep over this, and we're going to need to let this dry. So while we let this dry, I am going to go ahead and just pick up some of my brown. And I think a little bit more of my gold on that brush, and I didn't even wash it because I think a little blue might be kind of nice in there and create just a hint of kind of a nice natural mossy green. So I'm going to just kind of tap in a little mountain right over my sky there, and I'm just going to bring that right down. And if you put that into your ocean there, you can always use your finger to kind of redirect where that line is, but we're going to be putting another layer onto our ocean anyway, so it really won't matter. So we're going to just sweep across that horizon line with that mountain, and as you can see, it's a very thin kind of a layer, so don't fight that. That's just the nature of the paint, particularly with the dark colors. And so just get a layer on there, and we'll add another layer in just a little bit. So we're just kind of defining where that mountaintop is at, or where the mountain, I should say, is, or that hillside. And we're just going to let that be, we're going to let that dry. So at this point, we're going to need to take a drying break, because if we continue to try to put paint over this, it's just going to kind of keep blending in with what's there, and it's not going to really change up a lot. And I'm going to need some nice changes to create some depth in our ocean there. So take about 15 minutes maybe. You can use a hairdryer to expedite the process, and we'll be back after some drying time. Welcome back. We've allowed this to dry, so it's now dry to the touch, and now we can let another layer really give us the richness that we're looking for, as well as the detail. So, staying with this large brush, we're going to get that washed out and dried, of course. And this time I want to put some dark color back toward that horizon line, and that's going to draw the eye back. So let's take a little bit of our raw umber, which is our dark brown there, as well as some purple, and a little of that ultramarine blue. And we're going to lay that in right at that horizon line. We're going to lightly spread that out so that it's nice and dark back there. You may feel that you need a third layer, and again, a layer is only if you've let it dry completely and then go over that again. But I'm just using my paintbrush very, very soft and light, and that tends to kind of lay the paint on there enough to do the job. We're going to be adding in some reflections as well, and so I think we're going to be just fine with this second layer. But if you feel you need a third one, go ahead and do that. So again, I'm going to take a little bit more of my brown, purple, and blue, and I'll start sweeping this down this way. And remember, notice that there's a little bit of a diagonal here. So as it's going away from us, it's starting to kind of lean out into this bay here that's going to come around our mountain hill there. And so it's darker out this way. Now I'm going to use just my ultramarine blue and my cobalt that we originally did all of our first layer with, and I'm going to start laying that into this center area here. And again, I want this to start to reach out a little bit as it works its way back toward the horizon line. Now I'm going to kind of go over a little bit now of what I just put on there so that I get this nice gradation that happens between our darks and our kind of medium tones and then our lighter tones. So as I work a little bit further toward where the perspective is that someone is perhaps standing, I'm now going to add a little bit of white. Not too much, but a little bit of white with my ultramarine blue and my cobalt blue. And so now I'm going to start to get lighter tones even there. And again, I'm going to work this out so that I've got a little bit of a diagonal slant to that beach as it goes back. That's going to help to fool the eye in that there's distance here in this two-dimensional canvas. Again, I'm using horizontal brush strokes as I work my way across the ocean. And I'm working in this lighter area here, this lighter paint. I'm going to work that into that medium area a little bit so that once again it's a real nice gradation here. I think I want it to be just a touch lighter up front here, so I'm adding just a little bit of white there to my brush and adding that over it. Now I love the way that the colors kind of mix and mingle, and there's just that shimmery feel there. If you had mixed a color on your plate and then applied it, you wouldn't get that. It would have a very graphic quality to it. So I'm going to suggest that you, again, let those colors mix and mingle on the canvas, and you're going to get some really beautiful things happening. Much more energy in life, especially in something that's natural. So once again, we're just letting that be. And now, once again, I'm going to take my brown and my golden raw sienna there, and I'm going to give my mountain a second layer as well, and you'll see that that's really going to cover up nicely now. You can see that I'm using my brush stroke in the shape of the object. So in this case, it's a diagonal, and that tells our eye that this is something, jutting up from the earth. And again, just lay your paint on nice and gently there, and you should be able to get a nice layer on there. All right. Once again, we need to let that dry before we can put any reflections or any waves or anything like that in there. And so come on back and we'll do the next step in part 3.